This is the E-commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is awesome to have you along for the ride with us today. And before I introduce you to our incredible next guest, and he shares with us all the amazing stuff he's doing in our industry of e-commerce, digital, and digital retail. But before we jump into that, I'd like to recommend and encourage you to go wherever you're listening to this, wherever you're watching this, hit the like button or the equivalent of that, hit the follow button, and also share. It really helps us with the algorithms. And anybody who has been in the content game for a while knows that we've all got to play the algo game to a degree. So we would really appreciate your help in that regard. But without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Trey COURTNEY from Mood Media. Welcome, Trey.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to be here.
It's awesome to have you with me today. And look, we're going to talk about some pretty cool stuff. I think in over 430 episodes, I've only ever talked to one other technology vendor that even remotely plays in your space. And that's pretty rare because the reality is I oftentimes will have 4 or 5 or 6 different technology vendors that kind of play in similar spaces and are kind of competitors with each other. But you operate in a very incredibly detailed niche that is just not that common from a technology enablement perspective. But before we get into that and what your technology does and what it enables for brands, why don't you tell me how you even got into this space? Like what drew you into it? It's extremely niche, and you've been with Mood now 13 and a half years. That is not a short period of time.
Yeah.
You're with Muzak before that, and you've been director of services. You've worked as a manager at Accenture. So you're definitely a digital guy. You're definitely a technical guy. What drew you to Mood?
Yeah, I started as a consulting gig. I got pulled in. I had a small boutique consulting firm with a couple other buddies. We found Muzak, right? They came to us. They needed some help specifically with going from how they deliver content, which was satellite based, and they wanted to go to IP because obviously this was 2009, 2008. And so I came in really as a consultant to help them find a new device, build a platform, and I fell in love with it, right? It's very rare to find something. As you said, I have a background at Accenture. I was used to doing CRM projects and ERP projects, and they're fun. They're complicated, but I can't go take my kid and say, look at what I built versus what we do at Mood. I can actually take my kids into a retail store or a hotel and say, hey, my team builds that music. My team built the platform that delivers this experience. And so that's what's kept me in the game and kind of kept me excited about this industry. It is niche, but it's just cool to be able to build something and actually take your family to go see it.
Yeah, and look, what's interesting is I'm seeing more and more brands and retailers starting to pay attention to what I call retail theater, meaning that, okay, cool, we know we have to put the racking in there. We know we have to put the shelves in there. We know we have to put the point of sale system in there. We know we got to put the click counter and the tracker and maybe the area monitors in stores to see hot spotting of where people are pulling stuff off the racks. We've got to put security in our changing rooms. Like we've got all kind of the foundational stuff, what I would call the classical idea of a shop fitting, right? To actually fit out a store, to be able to sell goods over the counter to customers. But increasingly, the most successful brands are taking a much more nuanced approach to buyer psychology and how they can actually alter that buyer psychology or influence that buyer psychology through scent, through sound, through visuals, through network monitors, through not just music. There are stores that will, especially like skate stores and things like that, that'll actually have DJs that come in and actually have a DJ booth in store that they can interact with customers that way, and people can request songs. And we're seeing just the evolution, I would say, of retail, where to differentiate, it's in many respects, it's just not good enough to have a differentiated product set. You actually have to differentiate your experience to make it more memorable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to create that connection point, right? And I think if I know a lot of what you talk about is e-commerce technology, right? And I have a background. I spent a lot of time on e-commerce back in the day. I actually worked with eBay. And so I think a lot of what the investment over the last 20 years in retail has shifted to, I'm going to put a lot of money into online retail, which is great. But I think ultimately what they're looking at is saying people want to buy, we call it omni-channel, right? There's all sorts of buzzwords for it, but ultimately people still want to go in the stores, whether it's to buy a car, whether it's to shop for a new outfit, whether it's to buy school supplies. Yeah, there's some things we want to buy online, but there's some things we want to go experience. And the e-commerce technologies allowed retailers to realize, like, I can apply some of the same things that I do online, tracking. How do I engage that particular person to drive a result? And yeah, so, and I have two kids, 12 and 16. And it's funny because everyone thought that age would be like all online and never wanted to go to the mall and never wanted to go shopping. And the funny thing is, my 16-year-old goes to the mall all the time here in Southern California, right? She's like, Dad, I'm going to go meet my friends at the mall. And I'm like, wow, this feels like the 80s and 90s. And she wants to go shop there, right? She's not all just doing everything in e-commerce. And yeah, so there's this kind of resurgence, if you will, of how do I take the things we do in online and bring them to the offline experience or the retail experience. And that's where we come in. We want to bridge that gap. And we try to help retailers apply those same kind of tactics in the store as they do online.
And to your point, you raise the data shows that regardless of the category or vertical or area that you work in, 70 to 80% of all retail spend is still in a store. That's the reality today. And that's even post-COVID. The TAM for online absolutely exploded during COVID. We know that people had a gun to their head. They had to stay home. They had to mask up, shelter in place, and the fear porn was everywhere. So everybody was terrified to step foot outside their house because they didn't want to kill grandma. And so the reality is that the online TAM exploded. But once everything's tailed back off again and retail started to open back up again, and states like Texas and Florida, everything else were much more progressive than states like California. And definitely the reopening rates were different across the country, but the patterns remain the same, which were basically as soon as things started to open back up again, the trend line returned back to normal of online versus offline spend. And we're back to much more, it's still up and to the right from an e-commerce perspective, but it's returning back to the mean of that growth rate. And we're still seeing people still love those physical spaces, no matter where they are in the country.
Yeah, people want to get out, right? We want to see our friends. It's a social. In some ways, shopping is social, right? Yeah, I may go. I need a pair of jeans, and I'm gonna run by Target and go get a pair of jeans. But ultimately, a lot of shopping is inherently social, and it's very hard to do that online, right? Even grocery shopping during COVID, it was like, hey, I thought it was great at first. You could order food, or you could order your groceries. You pull up, and they pop your trunk, and they throw it in there. But then I don't discover the same things. I'm not finding the new sauce because they're not putting it out in front of me. Those are the things that I think we all miss, right? So I think it's a hybrid world, right? I think mobile's always going to be, online is always going to be a huge growth piece. But I also think that retail is going to continue to be an important part of the world. It's not going anywhere.
Oh, it's definitely not going anywhere and look, I am probably as guilty of it as almost anyone else in our industry. I am obviously a massive advocate for digital experiences and all the ways that we can make those more tailored and personalized to the buyer and making sure that we're meeting them where they are, regardless of what channel that is. When I'm an outlier personally, in the sense that I'll do all my shopping online if I can. I'm not a particular fan of going to physical stores, but I'm not so ignorant that when I do go into physical spaces, they're packed. That is the reality. Now that I live here in Puebla, I grew up in Southern California, lived in New Zealand for almost 30 years, now live in Puebla City, Mexico. And I tell you, it doesn't matter from California to New Zealand to Puebla, Mexico. When I walk into a mall, the reality is 9 times out of 10, it is wall to wall people. And it's hard to get around. That's how busy they are. These physical shopping spaces, or these third spaces in some respects, like I feel like malls, especially with the advent of work from home and things like that, people are looking for third spaces. They're looking for places that aren't necessarily an office and aren't necessarily your house, but they are places where maybe you can go into a cafe, you can hook into Wi-Fi, you can get some work done, but you've got the social in your surroundings. So I feel like these third social spaces, which oftentimes are shopping spaces, they're actually probably more important culturally now than they ever have been. And they're probably more relevant now than they've ever been.
Yeah, totally agree. I think if you look at Starbucks, they were the first third place, right? They built their brand on that. And obviously, it's not an indictment of Starbucks. I love Starbucks. My wife yells at me all the time for going to Starbucks, but I think people want more than Starbucks, right? They want to be able to go to the mall. They want to be able to go to an open shopping center. I used to be in Austin. Now I'm in Southern California. It's a great place to say, hey, let's go outside and do some work in an outdoor mall. Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's the case. People want that third place, and all the smart mall owners, all the smart retail developers are building that around mixed use, right? I can shop there, I can live there. It's easy to park, or it's easy to get there in transit. Absolutely.
But it's an exciting time to be in retail. Now, if we speak specifically about your company, Mood Media, and what it actually does and the solutions that it brings to retailers to help bridge that physical digital gap, you bill yourself, and just in all transparency, I've never done business with Mood before, so I don't have firsthand experience with it. But if I just read what's on the tin, a multi-dimensional media company that creates innovative and evolving brand experiences. Now, that's a mouthful of brand speak or marketing speak. But apart from music, what types of digital experiences or digital hybrid experiences do you help retailers create in store?
Yeah, it's like what you started with. So from a retailer, they're scent. We are a provider of scent, right? So if a client wants to create a unique scent experience in their location, we provide that. Music is our backbone, right? So globally, we service about 600,000 locations globally. A lot of that is music,
Wow.
but a lot of that is also scent. A lot of that is digital signage, right? So companies like a Lotus or a TJX will come to us and say, help us deliver a visual experience in our stores. And that can come in many forms, right? A grocery store may want to do menu boards and promo boards. A mall-based retailer wants to do more informational about what new clothes are coming out. So visual takes many different, what I'll call use cases or forms, but we provide that kind of across the board. We also are an AV company at heart too. So what does that mean? Not only do we provide the media and the content, we will actually design and install the experience, right? So we will design based on your store footprint, your layout, your architecture. Our systems designers will actually pick the right screens. We will get it installed for you, and then we'll help provide the media in whatever form for that experience. We also do interactive as well. So interactive is more like I go up to a screen and maybe it's endless aisle, right? All my products aren't on the shelf. I can browse, I can find it, I can flag a store associate. We build those types of interactive experiences.
Wow. And how popular is it becoming? Or I guess let's wind it back a little bit. Do you also partner with retail media networks as well? So if someone wants to leverage their physical store spaces for ads and they want a revenue share for that, maybe they don't just want to advertise their own products on a screen. They maybe want to advertise complementary products and clip the ticket for that. Do you integrate with retail media networks as well as part of what you do?
Absolutely. About a year and a half ago, we bought a company called Bidenomics, based out of Indianapolis, that was focused primarily on helping big box retailers, grocery stores. They call that food, drug, mass, right? Where they're selling other people's products, primarily CPG type products. They were focused on monetizing that and integrating it with retail media networks. So through Bibenomics, which is called a sister company, right? It's a separately owned subsidiary, but we're partnering with them to go to the likes of Kroger and CVS, who are building all these retail media networks and effectively integrating with all the retail media networks to basically sell advertising to the CPGs and others. And we help facilitate that through the Bibenomics platform.
Wow. And one of the things that I haven't seen become mainstream yet, and I've often wondered why this is the case, and maybe you can tell me. So if I'm in a big box store, right? I might be on the air fryer aisle, let's say, for example, small appliances, right? And they might only have room to display on the shelf 3 air fryers, right? Low range, medium range, high end air fryers. But they might have 30 air fryer SKUs that they carry in stock, right? On their website. So if I went to their website, I could choose from 30. In store, I can choose from 3, right? And so what I've often wondered is, why don't they simply create a QR code on a panel, whether it's on a screen, a digital screen, so they can update it digitally, or literally a physical printed QR code that actually is a link to the category of air fryers on the website, so that I can at least see, I can just scan the QR code, take me to the category of air fryers, and I can see all the air fryers you have available. Then if I want to, I would be able to actually purchase that, pay for that in store, and then have it shipped from a warehouse where I can pay for the whole cart in store, but some of it may actually have to be shipped to me. So it feels like these hybrid phygital shopping experiences, most brands still haven't figured it out. They still don't blend the offline and online shopping experience that well. And I'm just wondering, because the technology, it doesn't take that much. It just really takes a little bit of thought and care about the type of experience you want people to have when they're in your physical stores. And physical stores are dramatically reducing the number of in-store staff they have at any given point in time. So half the time I'm looking around, if I've got a question about something, I got to literally spend 5 minutes walking around the store to find somebody that can give me a hand, or check if they got stock of this thing in the back, because they don't have it out. It just feels, as companies try to cut the cost of running physical retail stores, they're actually compromising this experience, but then they're not backfilling it with any technology that would make that experience more seamless for the consumer. And I'm just wondering why that's the case.
So I think I break it up in a couple. So big box is unique. Many, and I'll just speak from a US perspective. Big box retailers and your average store is hundreds of thousands of square feet, right? That's a very expensive proposition for screens. You're talking about, it's not just about the screen, it's about, do I have power? What's it going to cost me to mount that screen? Do I have the right screen?
Internet.
And all that, a lot of retail, the smart big box retailers are investing in that, but it takes time. And when you have a footprint of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 stores, it takes a while to roll that out. I think what you're seeing is the smaller brand specific, mall specific type retailers, right? The Adidas, the Lids, those types of retailers. It's a confined footprint. It's easier to deploy. I think they're the ones that are leading the charge a bit in some of those fashion luxury brands, because they make more margin on the product, right? A lot of retailers, big box retailers, like grocery stores, they're leaning on the brand to invest in that technology. A lot of the technology in a retail store, say you went into a Target and you were looking in the speaker aisle and you saw Sonos speakers, right? You see the cool little display and you can push a button and listen to the speaker and test it. Target's not paying for that typically. That's Sonos paying for that. They're the ones that pay for that, right? And I think the big box folks are starting to rethink that, right? Because, and you're seeing that in the mobile app, right? If you open the Target app or the Home Depot app or the Lowe's app, I go there a lot, right? Lowe's and Home Depot. And they have store mode, right? It recognizes you're in that store and it'll help facilitate some of that. And so I think that's helping them realize, let's go invest in more screens, because not everyone carries their phone for whatever reason or wants to look at their phone. So I think that's going to drive it. And then I think the small retailers that are successful also inform what happens at the big box retailers.
Yeah, I agree with that, because one of the ways I've seen some retailers, and it's just still not that many, is they'll build in a barcode scanner in their app. And so when you're in store, if you want to learn more about a product, because there's only so much information you can put at point of sale in a store about a product, right? But what they'll do is they'll put the barcodes, because almost every store, not every one, but almost every physical retail store at least has the barcode there next to the product, or there's a box there that's got the barcode on it that you then could scan. And so in the app, you'd scan it, it would take you to the product page. And then at least from there, I can cross-sell, I can upsell, I can product recommend, I can show you substitutions. I can at least do all the digital merchandising based on an interaction I had in store. And so that's a relatively low lift piece of effort you'd have to put into your digital app experience to be able to more tightly fuse those experiences together. And I think you're spot on. I think in order for brands to get high uptake of their app, the app needs to bring extreme value. And it can't be just the digital online experience. It has to bring something else to the table other than me going to a website on my laptop. It's got to bring something else to the table to encourage me to actually install that app on my phone, take up the space on my phone, take up the screen space on my phone. And a lot of that comes down to, how can I interact with those physical touch points in a more seamless way by using the app as the interface. And I feel like that is an intersect that's going to increasingly get more interesting over time. And how do you think about the way that you guys would need to interact, or you guys would need to integrate some of your technologies into a mobile app environment to be able to either get more data, get more personalization information, be able to understand when customers are in specific locations, and do all those things from a personalized store experience perspective that in some ways you can only get that data through an app?
Yeah. Apps are tricky, right? The biggest challenge with the app ecosystem is sometimes the brand itself doesn't develop the app, right? They're using a third party. Maybe they're using a platform that sits on top of an Oracle or Salesforce, and it's integrated technology behind the scenes. So getting plugged into that can be tough. What we're seeing first and foremost, since in our heart, we're a media company, what we're trying to do is integrate with content and assets that the retailer already has. So a lot of times, for example, the content that a retailer is showing on the website, the SKUs, the product information. When I build an interactive experience at a retailer, I'm not recreating all that. I'm not recreating the database. I'm not recreating all that. I'm tapping directly into that. And then what we're trying to do is capture all the analytics of that interactive experience and feed it back to the retailer, whether it's real time or in batch, so they can make those decisions, right? Because a lot of times, I don't know who you are personally, Jason, when you touch my screen. I don't want to know, right? There's a level of, we need to personalize it, but I don't know you as an individual. But if you interact with that screen and I'm able to pass that data back, and Jason also then and then I trigger you to open the app, right? Learn even more and get product comparison, open up the Target app and scan this QR code, then I can actually, the retailer has all that information and they have a lot of it, right? They know Jason goes to, he's gone to Target 5 times, and I'm picking on Target, but it could be any retailer. I've come to this location 5 times, I bought these things, and I can then start to personalize, whether it's promote a product now, promote a product later. So if you leave the store, I can get you to come back in later, right? Hey, just like retailers do online. You didn't buy the product, you add it to the cart, I get that email. It's that we're trying to integrate that from a physical perspective, right? So that if you interact with our content, if I have a touch point like a QR code, I can feed that back in and they could potentially close that transaction outside the store or get you to come back in later.
Especially if it's a promo for that product that I effectively abandoned in store, just like I would do an abandon online. Not only do I use online retailers, they're not just sending you an abandoned cart follow-up for that. They're saying, okay, cool, if they don't execute and reactivate the cart based on an abandoned cart email, that doesn't mean that it's not one and done. We're gonna save that information in our system. We're gonna segment based on that, and then the next time, for example, that item might be on promotion or it might have free shipping or something like that. Well, cool. I can now bring that customer into that cohort and say, well, we know they were interested in that product. They just haven't bought it yet. Maybe this is a stim campaign that's going to tip them over the edge to actually complete that purchase. And it feels like you're going to be able to do that in store. Effectively, if you know that customer has abandoned that product, they were interested, but they didn't purchase it in that session in store, then now maybe digitally I can reach back out to them if I know who they are, and I can now promote to them just like I would if they were a digital visitor to my website. So there's an increasing crossover between the in-store and online experiences in there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what do you think the future of physical retail is, and what does that look like for Mood? Do you see other areas of opportunity that you guys don't play in yet, or any in-store experiences that you don't facilitate yet, but either your retailers are already asking you to help them with that, or you go, man, this is a gap in the market that no one is playing in or doing it very badly. We think we can do this better and bring a more holistic solution to the market.
So I think there's twofold. I think to me, it's evolution of what we already do, right? I don't know if there's a greenfield. I think it's more of, for example, how do we do more integration with a retail capability with a mobile capability and build products around that. So retailers, again, can do the use case that I talked about instead of today building what I'll call a one-off bespoke solution for a client. Can I do that at scale for a mid-market client? Because enterprises have the money and it's worth my while to do a custom development, right? One time for them. When I start getting into the small businesses, the mid-market, when there's a lot of those around the world, how do I build something that can scale for them? No different what Shopify's done, right, for e-commerce, right? For SMB. I can launch one tomorrow and sell my product goods and services. Is there an opportunity there from an omni-channel perspective to bridge that gap, a smaller retailer? So I think that's an extension. I think customization of content's another one. Today, I build music, say I'm building a music program for a client. I'm doing it based on their brand attributes, which is given to me. That's their ideal. I'm trying to reach this type of consumer, this type of demographic, and I build a playlist around that. Demographics change. Demographics are different where you shop, right? I'm in Southern California. If I go to a mall in Irvine, it's going to be completely different if I go to the store in Texas. How do I augment that playlist and target that playlist? And it's hard to do at scale today, but investing in things like AI, where even the retailers themselves could, hey, what's the playlist I should play for Halloween in Austin for a 14 to 18-year-old demographic, I could build a playlist and hit play immediately, and I can very quickly create that experience. And then there's messaging. You talked about retail media networks. A lot of what we do, some of it is truly a retailer selling an ad, like an audio ad overhead to a CPG, and they monetize that. But many of our retailers, they do their own ads, right? I'm doing promotional messages for my own product. We do about 30,000 of those just for Core Mood, not Bibenomics, but we produce and schedule about 30,000 voice spots for clients in their retail experience. And that takes a lot of work. I have to write a script for them. I have to get them to approve that script. I then have to find the right voice. I have to wait for that voice talent to voice it. They then have to listen to it. And that could be a very iterative process. It could take a week. It could take two, depending on how picky they are. And so what we've invested in is AI, and that's something we can show later, but we built an AI tool for clients that, whether it's advertising driven or just promotional messaging in store, we built a tool that allows a client to actually do that at scale very quickly, and it allows them to get personalize and localize that message in seconds.
Wow. Maybe that's a perfect opportunity, perfect segue into share screens. You said before we went on air that there was a quick demo that you wanted to show us and some stuff you wanted to share from the interface. And so I'm going to let you share screens. And for those of you who are listening to this on an audio only podcast, go and check us out on YouTube or Rumble, because you'll be able to actually see the screen share from directly. But I'm going to gameplay this, and I'm going to describe what I'm witnessing on screen for those that are just listening to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let me just pull that up. Can you see my screen?
I certainly can. Yep.
Right.
What I'm seeing here is almost like a voice finder. It says find the perfect voice, recently used voice. You got different people with what appears to be different avatars, descriptions of who they are. You got some males, you got some females here. You got the American flag here. You got an English flag here. So I assume that's probably going to be the accent that avatar has. So that's what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is recently used voices because I've been using it, because most people want the same consistent voice, right? If I have large or small, I don't want to change my voice every time. And so the idea is, if you use this tool, whether we do it for the client or the clients do it themselves, they're always going to get the same voice so they can select from. I can also, if I just started from scratch, I have a whole host of voices. Today we're launching this in November, and it's going to be for British and basically English voices. So British, male, American English, but we're going to expand that. And you can basically filter. Some people want someone's voice is good for advertisement. I can filter that. People that are more conversational, more narrative, depending on the story you're trying to tell. You can pick voice style. So you can say, I want, again, expressive, friendly, natural. Which accent do I want? Do I want American English, Australian English? So I can basically filter, and then I can preview it, right? So I can say, let's listen to what Adam sounds like.
Now, I can't hear that playing. I'm not sure if you can from your side.
I can hear it. I'm not sure how I would get the sound to come through this, though.
That's okay. That's okay. What I'll do is I'll sportscast this here. So you've clicked on Adam. I'm guessing from your side you're hearing a snippet of his speech, of his accent, of his voice. And effectively, these are just AI avatars. They've got different attributes of that specific avatar, and then those attributes are actually filterable with a filter bar up at the top, so that I can find the correct avatar to do the voiceover of the verbiage of the spoken ad that I want to do. And I'm assuming once I select a specific avatar here, then can I copy and paste in a script effectively that I get them to do the voiceover for?
Yeah, so let's say I like Amelia. I like the British voice, right? So I'm going to select Amelia. I go next. I create a message. I'm going to call this promotion, and I'm going to put you on the spot. Jason, you're an e-commerce guy. What do you want to promote, whether it's online or in store? And it's simple.
This week we are promoting our polka dot sundresses because we're just heading into summer, and it's currently 20% off all sundresses for this week only.
So I'm not a script writer. Not
that's fine. I see it there.
So I can preview, because some retailers and clients know exactly what they want to say. They just want a voice, right? So you could copy that script in and go. But then I can ask Copilot, which is what we're calling our messaging, or we're calling it Messaging Copilot. I can say, you know what, help me with this. And what
I see that there and I'm just going to, again, sportscast this. On the right-hand side of the screen, there's an AI suggestions Copilot there. And then basically I'm given a couple of options, creative, and then the format. And then I'm guessing that once I move to the next step, then it will make a suggestion of what I could say to replace the script that I've already entered in there.
And so as you can see, it took that very simple message, right? And it rewrote it. And we have multiple versions. And I can edit this, I can trim it down, I can change the words. I can even go in here. If I say I'll close this and I'll say I want to use this one, it'll copy it over. I can edit, I can change the voice. I can basically dial it in very quickly, save it, push it out to my stores almost instantaneously, right? I can
Wow.
go to a group of stores, I can go to one store, I can create multiple versions of this. So if I wanted to say, hey, I want to personalize this for the location, Austin or San Francisco or wherever in Mexico, you could absolutely just customize these very quickly, create a copy of these and publish it out. You can also download it. So when we talk about bridging between online and in-store, there's nothing that prevents you from potentially using this on maybe a social campaign or on your website because we allow you to download that. So
Wow.
these are some things. And again, if you think about this, the power of advertising, and retail media networks want advertising to work just like it does on the mobile phone, right? Quick, personal, A/B testing, all the tactics we use to test online. That's what retail media networks do, right? That's how they monetize. They need the same ability in the retail location. And so audio messaging, that's where we're starting. But you could see where we're going to very quickly take this to visual, right? So if you want to do a visual advertisement, you could do the same type of feature where create an image, create a promotion, customize it, and push it out to the stores very quickly.
And ultimately, we'll be able to create a video from that very easily with a template, a background, the branding, the brand kit, every brand guidelines, everything else. Now, with this audio messaging, can I put a music background behind that, some sound behind that to make it a little bit more engaging instead of just the voice?
Yeah, good question. So phase one, many of our resellers don't put a background music on their messages, especially on the advertising, because they want the voice to come through. And a
Yep.
lot of times our music, remember we're a big music provider, the music is still playing below. So we duck
Yes.
the music down like radio, and then this message plays overhead. But there's some subset that want call it a embedded music behind the scenes. That's going to come in January. So we'll have a whole catalog of
Library basically of music that
different
you can
music.
put
Yeah.
behind those audio ads.
That's right. That's right. So we're launching this in November to our clients. And then we're starting here, and then we're going to expand it to more voices, more languages, and add more capabilities like the background music bed.
Wow, this is very impressive. I really like that. I like the fact that you've democratized access to this kind of technology, even for one store, two store, three store brands that maybe aren't a big national chain. They might not be able to afford all the custom solutions that are out there in the market, or even custom solutions you can build for them. But if you can democratize this and you can make it available to every single one of your customers, regardless of their scale or size, it's a pretty big game changer. It means they don't have to get voice talent, they don't have to queue that up, they don't have to write the entire script. They can make it much more contextual, much more time for, especially for promotions that are extremely time sensitive, flash sales, right? The old, what we used to call the old blue light special, Kmart, etc. Those they would literally have, and I don't know if they still do because there's not many Kmart's around still. But in fact, are there any anymore? But anyway,
One or two left.
yeah, they had a microphone literally in the center of the
Yeah.
store. Someone would go there and they'd say blue light special over in women's footwear or whatever it is for the next 15 minutes. It's 25% off or whatever it is. And so those very spur of the moment types of promotions, I think the challenge is, even if you can do that in your point of sale, or you can do it in your ERP, or you can put that information into your PIM system or whatever it is, the reality is communicating that in store has always been really challenging. And that's why they've always had those loudspeakers in store for people to announce those types of promotions and specials in store. But this effectively automates that whole process and makes it seamless across the entire store network and allows you to segment in a really granular way.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, because at the end of the day, if you're a large chain and even a small chain, your store manager is the one who knows that store. He knows what he
Yeah.
has in stock. He knows what he needs to move, but he doesn't necessarily have the talent. I would never want my voice to be playing overhead, right?
Oh, come on now. You got that nice Southern drawl.
I know. Yeah, I can't get rid of it. I tried moving around and I can't get rid of it. But I can't. A lot of people don't want their voice, right? And this allows a store manager instead of going through the corporate process, come to me, wait 5 days. It's timely. They can very quickly pick the right corporate professional voice approved by corporate, pop in that promotion and away they go. And it's clickable button.
Wow, that's incredible. Is there anything out there? Obviously, AI, I'm guessing that you're going to start this is the first step of bringing in AI into the platform and AI co-pilot technology into the platform. Are there other areas, as you said, you'd like to expand this into areas like playlist creation, where I say, this is the type of music I want, this is the type of customer I'm looking for, and we can have dynamic playlists that are effectively defined by AI? I'm guessing that's the next future phase for you guys.
Yeah, that's the next step. And that's going to be more relevant for your smaller SMB customers. Not to say that a large enterprise account wouldn't want that. The other area is visual. Creating visual content is also hard in terms of, hey, I want to create a promotion, 50% off for this sweater. Maybe I just have a simple sweater picture. I've got to wait for the corporate agent or the agency to go create this thing, approve it. It's the same process, just longer. With all the AI tools out there, we want to leverage that so you can create visual promotions in whatever form very quickly. And where our expertise comes in is like the voice. We didn't build the voice technology. We're partnering with a well-known, established partner, but we're the ones who know how to tweak the dials. We've been doing, as I said, we do 30,000 plus messages a year. We know how to write scripts for in-store. So we've effectively taken our know-how and applied it to this to build the prompts. And we're going to do the same thing for visual, right? Because building a visual loop for video content is not the same as doing it for TV or online, right? You got a different dwell time. It's just a different approach. And so we're taking our industry expertise to build the prompts and have the AI do it correctly based on the in-store environment.
I can tell you firsthand, for me personally, how good this has gotten. I just recently, there's an AI platform called Hey Gen, and they do AI voice translations. And I have recently established a Spanish language channel for my podcast across all the different formats and platforms. And I push up the English language video into Hey Gen. 5-6 hours later, it's translated it all, but it doesn't just do the translation. It does voice sync, it does face sync, and it does lip sync. So it actually looks like me and my guests are native Spanish speakers. And
Right.
it literally looks absolutely flawless. And the technology is definitely getting better. And I've only recently signed up with them for this because they went to an unlimited model, whereas it used to be credit based. And even a year ago, it would have cost me $20,000 or more a year for enough credits to translate all of my podcast episodes into Spanish, because I do release 3-hour-long episodes a week. So that you multiply that times 52 weeks a year, it gets pretty expensive pretty fast. But once they move to an unlimited model for a fixed monthly fee, now all of a sudden it's accessible. So the price and accessibility, the price is coming down of AI, the accessibility is going up, and there's more competition than ever before on the background vendors that are supplying the underlying tooling to vendors to platforms like you. And so therefore, it's just simply going to make this AI technology more accessible to not just the platform vendors, but ultimately the businesses that leverage them.
Yep, totally agree. It's amazing how over the last really 12 months, even because we've been playing around with or investigating the voice technology I showed you for over a year. And it's amazing just how it just gets better and better. When we first started, yeah, you could tell that was an AI voice. Now you can barely tell. And in our world, in a busy store environment, you're not going to notice it. It's not going to come through.
It's almost subliminal in a way sometimes in a store environment.
Yeah. It's exciting. And we're doing things like we have clients that want to do their own voice for the CEO or a brand spokesman, where we can clone their voice and they can use that voice.
Wow. Absolutely love it. And how do you guys make your money? Because you're effectively a SaaS platform for these merchants to work with and a web-based interface for them to do all this work in, as you just showed me. Do you charge by message? Do you charge by location? Do you charge by minutes served? Like, how does that work out? If I'm a retailer and I come to you and you present me with a pricing proposal, what are the kind of all the metrics that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about how much I'm going to have to pay for a solution like yours?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's twofold, right? First, it's do you have the screens and the speakers and the technology? That's our AV business, right? That's a one-time business. Typically, you're going to pay me to install the speakers. I sell you the speakers. That's a one-time capital investment, right? We call that equipment and labor, our systems business. That's a one and done type of thing. And obviously we offer maintenance contracts and managed services around that, but that's typically an upfront investment to outfit the location. Once we've done that and we've installed the service, whether it's the music, the signage, we've got the platform there, whether we're doing it on your behalf or you're doing it, it's a per location subscription type model, right? And so obviously the more locations you have, the more economical it can get on a per location basis, just based on scale. But that's how we work, right? It's a per location per month type of model.
And give me a range. Is it $500 a location per month? Is it 10,000 a location a month? What is the average that I would pay as a retailer, just as a ballpark?
Music is sub 50 per location per month, typically, right?
Wow.
Music is in that ballpark, and it varies depending on, are you doing multiple custom programs, or we do have a standard set of core programs you can pick from, catalog music, if you will. So it varies, but it's definitely it's in the $50 range, or sub 50, give or take.
Right.
And
Now, if I
obviously the
take
bigger,
all your services, then I might be video, static imagery, all interlinked, maybe even retail media, something like that. I guess sky's the limit from there.
yeah, retail media is a little unique. Like Vibenomics is more about a rev share model to some extent. And then, yeah, because we're helping facilitate that transaction, whether we're taking the inventory of the ads, and sometimes we have sales teams. The Vibe team has a sales team that will help sell that inventory, or retail media networks just plugged into the Vibenomics platform and they're selling, but it's a marketplace, if you will, which we call ISM. That's more of a rev share model. A traditional core visual services or music or messaging on a per location per month basis. Visual is going to be the most expensive typically, but it's still going to be in that. It really is based on, I'd say that's based on more of a per screen per month fee. And it will vary based on what the use case is. If you're doing mini boards and you need a POS integration, that might be $20, $30 per player per month. If you're doing a big video wall, right, like at the airport, that could be hundreds of dollars a month. So there's a lot of calculus that goes into the pricing, but it's not as expensive as people think. Most people, it's the capex up front to get the right technology to be able to deliver the experience.
Makes complete sense. Amazing. Look, this has been super enlightening and super educational for me. We're nearly at an hour already, so the time has absolutely flown by. But this is where the point in our conversation where I get to flip the script, where I get to hand the microphone over to you, let you ask me one question, any question you like, it could be personal or professional. So, Mr. Trey Courtney from Mood Media, what is your question for me today?
So we didn't get as much chance to talk at the beginning. How did you end up in Pueblo City?
Look, it's interesting. We had been looking to get out of New Zealand for a while. My wife's a Kiwi. I'm a dual citizen, New Zealand American. My grandfather was a Kiwi. My brother-in-law's a Kiwi. So I got lots of connections to the Australia-New Zealand region already. And like I said, I lived there for 28 years. We originally moved to New Zealand to really just get out of California. We were just done with that. We were like, okay, let's explore something else for a change. And New Zealand it was, because of our connection to New Zealand through my grandfather. And that made it really easy for us to immigrate to New Zealand. And then latterly, there was lots of motivations to leave New Zealand and come to Mexico. But the thing that tipped us over the edge was New Zealand's COVID handling, to be honest. A lot of people may not know, especially Americans, they may not know New Zealand was one of the most locked down countries in the entire world during COVID. Australia was also one of the most locked down countries in the entire world during COVID. For 3 years, we couldn't really leave the country. Well, you could leave, but you couldn't get back in, because then you had to go back into quarantine and you had to go into a lottery for a quarantine location. And they didn't have enough quarantine locations for all the Kiwis that wanted to return home. So a lot of people got stuck outside of New Zealand for 3 years as a result. And so it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough. And for people that chose not to get vaccinated like us, we choose to go down the natural health route instead of the vaccination route. The prime minister was pretty clear on TV. You're going to have a lesser level of freedom than the people that choose to get vaccinated. You're not going to be able to go into public spaces. You're not going to be able to. You're going to have to have click and collect for your groceries. You're going to have a lot less freedom. You're not going to be able to go into cafes. You're not going to be able to hang out with your friends. The government was pretty clear about the fact if you didn't get vaccinated, you were not going to have a lot of freedom, and that just really didn't sit right with me. They had vaccine mandates. They had the mask mandates. It was just a terrible time in the country's history, and that was the kind of the final straw that broke the camel's back to say, look, we got to get out of here. And when we started doing our research around how different countries around the world handled COVID, Mexico was one of the most free, the most open, right throughout the whole of COVID. They kept the borders open. Tourism boomed in Mexico during COVID because it was one of the only countries you could go to as tourist. And they didn't even require a PCR test when you came across the border. So for us, it was like, this feels like a place where there's a lot of freedom, a lot of inherent freedom. And I'm a big freedom guy. Maybe it's a holdover from my American days. I don't know, but I'm a big personal freedom guy. And the cost of living, too, was a big attraction. We love the food. We love the culture. We love the people. We love the weather. There's lots of really cool things here, but those are probably the two biggies were freedom, cost of living, access to the American market. Because I speak at a lot of conferences in the States, a lot of e-commerce conferences and things like that. I have a lot of clients in the US. So easy access to the US was also a big priority for us. And Puebla has got its own international airport, and then we're only a 2-hour drive away from CDMX, Mexico City International Airport, and we can go anywhere from there. It ticked a lot of boxes for us.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a beautiful country too. So
It is, and the people are lovely. So we love living here, despite the fear porn in the media about it's so crazy. We did 20,000 kilometers driving around Mexico last year. So we covered a lot of ground, and we didn't have any issues. We didn't have any safety issues. I think if you're smart and you don't do dumb things, sure, you can get caught in the crossfire maybe. Bad things happen in all big cities. If you're in LA or if you're in San Francisco or if you're in Chicago or whatever, Miami, it almost doesn't matter, right? You can always have bad things happen to good people sometimes. But I think if you keep your nose clean, if you don't take drugs or sell drugs, you dramatically minimize your chance of running into trouble in Mexico. So
yeah,
for us, it was completely safe.
got it. Makes total sense. All right, thanks for sharing. That was enlightening.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.